Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar explaining how you can measure your outcomes with BestNotes. My name is Nicole Hovey, and I would like to introduce our host for the webinar, Kristen Frankham. Kristen is the Director of Outcome Tools at BestNotes, and she is the point of contact for setting up our BestNotes customers with their Outcome Tools account and teaching them how to use the software to send and receive surveys. If you have a question throughout this webinar, feel free to just type it into this Q&A feature located down here at the bottom, and we will address it during our Q&A portion of the webinar. Take it away, Kristen.
Thank you, Nicole. We're excited for all of you to join us today. Thank you for taking the time to join our webinar. What we want to do is we want to kind of talk about some of the objectives that we're going to cover in the presentation and go through those. We want you to understand the importance of measurement-based care by the end of this presentation, and also how you can use outcome tools and get started at using it. And then also we'll kind of talk about the Joint Commission standard that went into effect January of 2018 and how you can meet that using your outcome tools and BestNotes. So the history of outcome tools was that it started, or it began in 2010, and it came because of the need for the National Association of Therapeutic Schools and Programs to measure the effectiveness of wilderness treatment therapy. They wanted to prove and show that their outcomes were effective, and so we developed outcome tools for them to gather that data. They work really heavily with the Outdoor Behavioral Health Council, and they still gather data and report on that each year to the NatSat programs. They've been gathering this since 2008 and have found lasting change in the areas of behavioral problems, substance abuse, depressive symptoms, and a variety of other issues, and only because they've been able to show that visually with their outcomes that they've gathered in outcome tools. Now, in July of 2017, because of the research that they found, a new billing code for insurance companies was established that makes it easier for wilderness therapy treatment programs to bill their insurers for their services. And it just helps them to be able to show the treatment that they're giving is effective when they measure and show that in a visual way. Now, when you hear outcomes, a lot of people think of different things. You think of client progress monitoring, measurement-based care, value-based care. You can also measure the effectiveness of your program or the effectiveness of the treatment that you're giving, or how satisfied are your customers with that treatment that they're receiving. But for today, we're going to focus more on the client progress monitoring side, mostly because that's what the Joint Commission has gone to in their new standard. So what is the Joint Commission requirement? They are requiring organizations to gather and analyze the data generated through standardized monitoring and use those results to inform your care, treatment, and services for your clients. And then on the second portion of it is that they want organizations to aggregate that data so that they can make improvements within their organization. So to break it down, the different sections are: you must use a standardized tool, one that has been tried and true, reliable and valid in the in the industry. You need to measure at regular intervals and often. They want you to measure early on in treatment so that you can make improvements with that client or see how that client is doing while you still have them in treatment. So you could measure post-discharge data, but that won't meet the Joint Commission requirement. And then they want you to use that in your care, treatment, and services. So documenting it in your treatment planning or your master treatment plan or your progress notes. And then take all of that data to improve your organization. So this benefits everyone, the client and the organization, by gathering this data. So why should you measure? There's been a lot of research that has shown that clients get better faster when they know that their outcomes and can see improvement over time. And so that's really your goal as clinicians and therapists, is to show that your clients are getting better. And when they know what's happening in their treatment, they feel like they're winning. And so this gives you a tool to be able to do that. Also, regulatory bodies are requiring measurement-based care, like the Joint Commission and CARF. There's also changes in payer reimbursement that are moving from a fee-for-service to a fee-for-outcome. So to be prepared for that, you can start measuring your outcomes now to be prepared. To talk about that fee for outcome, many professionals are agreeing that the transition to fee for value service is lowering costs of healthcare, and it also helps to increase the quality because you're focused on the patient and their treatment and their outcome as opposed to treating them right then just for the service that they're coming for. And then it also helps you to address real-life problems early on in treatment. So you're seeing real-time what's happening with your client. Are they if you're using like a PHQ-9, are they showing signs of depression still even after being in treatment for a month? Different things like that you'll be able to address in your treatment. So last week there was a conference, the NCAD conference, and Theo Bunham-Morris put together a slide that I thought explained the fee for service and showing kind of the value of measuring outcomes. So you collect your data, you confirm that your data has integrity, verifying your results. Then you can demonstrate the impact of a service over your service or intervention by seeing what outcomes are coming after you verify your results. And then your value is determined by examining the impact or the outcome that you've done over the cost of the service that you're getting. So value in healthcare is measured by the outcomes achieved. So this is all going back to your feedback-informed treatment. That's what the Joint Commission wants you to do. Right here it says, the use of outcome data routinely may facilitate reflective clinical practice, a model of decision-making which leads to a higher quality of clinical care than automated problem solving. So all of your patients, your partners, your clinicians, management, staff, all of them have to make decisions on a daily basis about your organization or your patient's care. And those decisions should be, at least in part, supported by information developed through the collection of data. So just being able to inform your decisions so that you aren't doing it just based on a feeling, but you have solid data behind why you did a particular treatment or why you made a particular organization change. So now that we've kind of talked about what the requirement is and why we need to be doing measurement-based care, we're going to talk about how to do that within BestNotes. Within BestNotes, here's the steps that we want you to take within OutcomeTools. Decide what data you want to know. So once you know what data you want to know, so first you want to decide what data you want to know. Once you know that, then it will help you to choose a tool that will help you get that data. So you want to choose, once you choose that instrument, then you can decide how often you want that to be delivered. Within OutcomeTools, we can help you set up a schedule and have those delivered regularly. And then we want to help you get signed up with OutcomeTools so that you can do and gather your data. And then next, we will provide training for your staff for OutcomeTools to show you how to administer the surveys, how to assign the regular intervals, and then you will want to take that data that you gather and document your results within. How do you know what instrument to choose? The Joint Commission, these are the requirements that they require, and they are good standards to follow because it helps you to know that you're getting quality information. So you want to use a valid and reliable tool. You also want to choose one that is sensitive to change, not a one-time instrument, but one that will allow you to see whether a client is progressing or digressing. And then also be able to use for repeated use. You can use, like, for example, there's a survey called the ACE, but it's a one-time survey, so it wouldn't meet a Joint Commission requirement, but it's also good information to know at the beginning of treatment so you can address some of the things that you learn from that tool. You'll also want to choose an instrument that includes a clinical cutoff, so one that can discriminate between clients who are healthy or non-healthy, or ones who have depression, have a high level of depression or low depression. It just shows you the median. Here's the median score, and if they're above this line, they are in a clinical range, and if they're below the line, that they're in a healthy range. And then you'll want to decide on a tool, whether you want to use an open source tool or one that is licensed. We have a list of instruments in our library. Here on our questionnaire library, they're outlined of those that are public domain, and then also those that are copyrighted. And then we have a list of licensed surveys that we provide. And we can talk about pricing for the licensing. You usually just pay the copyright holder directly, and then we can put those into the system. If there's a tool that you like to use that is a standardized tool that you're already using and we don't have it in our library, we can build that into the system for a cost to have our developer build that. So we can talk about which tools you're interested in. So once you decide on a tool, you want to decide how often you're going to deliver that survey. Within OutcomeTools, we set rules, and it helps to kind of automate the process of your survey delivery. So for example, if you were using the YOQ 2.0 self-report on admit, but you wanted to deliver it on admit and then every 30 days until discharge, we will set up rules that will automatically deliver those surveys. So when you have all of that set up, then you're going to have an Outcome Tools tab within your BestNotes. So we're here on a client's page, and we have an Outcome Tools tab, and it's telling us that that client doesn't exist in Outcome Tools. You will hit the Add Client button, which then pulls your data out of BestNotes into Outcome Tools. And you can see by clicking on that card to the left of the name that any data with a yellow lock is coming out of BestNotes. So if any of that data needs to be updated, you'd go back into BestNotes, update it, so that you're not having any discrepancies between your data in BestNotes and Outcome Tools. You're entering it once in BestNotes, and that's your one place to enter it, and then it's coming over into Outcome Tools, even as you update data as well. The way to assign your surveys, once you get your client in and you want to start assigning your surveys, is clicking on the lightning bolt. And we will have your series set up once you tell us the different intervals that you want to deliver them. And you can assign that, and it will auto-assign those surveys, whether you're doing it every 30 days or if you're doing it at specific time points. And those will get assigned to the client. So you'll see also that there is a delivery method here on that. We have different delivery methods that you can do, and we'll address that here in just a minute. You can also assign surveys manually on the Questionnaires tab. By clicking on this Questionnaires drop-down, it'll list all the questionnaires in your system. You assign a time frame to it. So we have a naming system where you do A0 for admit, A30 for 30 days after admit, or D0 for discharge, D180 for 180 days after discharge. And that just allows you to compare different instances across your clients, so that you can see my clients who came in on admit had a score of this. My clients who have been here for 30 days have a score of this. And then you assign your delivery method. And then once you assign your surveys, you can actually view the survey that the client's going to take. So when you click on the piece of paper, your client will see this survey depending on what delivery method you're doing. So you can see the surveys here. They can respond. The surveys are all touchscreen compatible, so you can deliver them on an iPad, or if they pull them up on their phone, they're even able to take them on their cell phone. So the different delivery methods, we have a kiosk iPad. This is where you can have a dedicated computer in your office, where you'll have a kiosk iPad link where they can log in and do that. And then that helps them to self-report right there while they're in your office. The web link is when you can send a personalized email, and you'll include the web link into that email and copy that and send it out. The email delivery method is where you can automatically send, there's a standardized email within OutcomeTools that gets sent out at your regular intervals. You'll use that mostly when your client isn't coming into your office or they're not in your office. And then your by staff from paper is when you print it off on paper, have the client take the survey, and a staff member then input the results into the system. And then by staff in-person interview and phone interview are just like they say. You'll have your client in front of you. You can pull the survey up and respond. These are more when they're not self-reported data. It's an interview style. So once the client takes the survey, then the system automatically scores the survey. And that score, depending on the survey, will tell you something about the client. In this particular survey, there's different subscales that tell you that are different areas of measurement. And then your overall score will tell you about that client. Once you get multiple instances of the survey into your system, you can then compare and show. This is where we're talking about showing progress over time. So this particular client took the survey on admit, 30 days after admit, and 60 days after admit. And on a YOQ 2.01 self-report, a downward trend line is showing that the client is improving. Now, your overall score isn't telling you the specifics of what is happening. So this survey is actually a licensed survey, and you're licensing with OQ measures. And within OutcomeTools, we are integrated with OQ measures when it will open up their clinician feedback report that shows you the top 10 critical items that client answered on that particular survey. And it also shows you some normative data on that survey. The other nice thing about this taking the surveys in OutcomeTools is that the data will come back into, not the data, but a copy of the score will come back into BestNotes. And so if you were to write a progress note, you could open up your progress note with your OutcomeTools scores right here and see the last survey that the client took and use that score within your documentation. And then with the second portion of the Joint Commission requirement, wanting you to aggregate your data, you can look at this overall data. This is your overall client progress report. So this is telling us that on admit, we've had 16 clients take this survey, and their average score altogether was 76. Now, these aren't large enough data samples to make any decisions within our organization, but as you use the system on a regular basis, you'll be able to see specific trends and make decisions in your organization based off of the data that you're receiving. One thing that I didn't mention is that you can also take the data out of OutcomeTools and export it. So if the client progress report or the overall client progress report doesn't give you the data that you're looking for specifically, you can export that and run any other report. So maybe you want to know on question 9 how many clients are answering yes on a regular basis. So what do you do after you've gathered that data? You want to document that in your clinical documentation on how that, and document how you took the information you found out on your instrument and use that in your care, treatment, and services. And then what we've been talking about, analyzing it to make organizational goals for improvement. So to document it in BestNotes, you can pull up your master treatment plan worksheet. You can open up a progress note, and some of your objectives are: Kristen scored a 22 on her baseline PHQ-9 with consideration of severe major depressive disorder. We're going to work on objectives to help her improve that during her treatment. You would write your clinical summary here based off of the information that you're finding from your survey. And you can also do that on your treatment plan review. So there's several documents depending on which one you need to be able to put that into your documentation. So now that we've covered the importance of why why we do measurement-based care, what are the requirements for Joint Commission, and you've kind of seen some screenshots of outcome tools. We want to open it up for questions to see if there's any questions that you have particularly.
Thanks, Kristen. I have a couple of good questions here. One is there an admin feature to view all or multiple staff results per client?
Yes, so within Outcome Tools, you can filter the results by provider. So your provider is attached to your provider one in BestNotes, and you can go look at each different provider and it'll average the scores of your clients on there. And you can also export those results to look at them a little bit deeper.
Awesome. And Timothy asks, is there a way to modify the admit 30 and discharge and post-discharge instances? And is there also a way to add additional instances?
Yeah, so you can't do it individually yourself to modify those, but I can go in and add those for you. So if you have particular instances that you use, so maybe you do it on A7, A14, you do it once a week, so you need those instances. I can add those to your drop-down, and that way you can customize the different instances that you use that are meaningful for your organization.
Have a couple more popping up here. Is this a software as a service program tool over a wireless network that can be used with tablets, or do you have to have a running local PC, workstation, or both?
It is over the internet. You do have to have internet connection to be able to use this, and so it's a website that is connected through BestNotes. So you have to have, just like with BestNotes, you have to have internet connection to access Outcome Tools.
A specific question. Looks like we have the trauma CANs. Would we be able to add the Idaho-specific CANs report?
So that's a really good question. We have a team here called the Idaho Profile Team, and they've been working really closely with the Idaho CANs. We haven't figured out if we're going to put it into Outcome Tools or not. Idaho actually has their own system that they've, I think that there was a training just last week or 2 weeks ago called the ICANs, which is how the state of Idaho is going to gather that data. So we're probably not going to put it in Outcome Tools. It's also a very lengthy tool, and depending on what's needed on that. So I'd love to talk to you later about what the options are for that Idaho CANs.
I'll get her email address. Another question. We have questionnaires already in Outcome Tools. Are these universal? And if so, how do we know which questionnaires to use and when?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So depending on what questionnaires you already have, some of them are standardized and validated and normed. I'm not a clinical psychologist, but what we can do is we can go look at the ones you're using specifically. The ones that I know that a lot of companies are using for Joint Commission are like the PH29, the GAD7. One of the best tools, and the one that Joint Commission has actually used in presentations to show like the clinical cutoff and the reliable norm, are the OQ measures, which I kind of addressed a little bit in the presentation. And so to help you answer that question, really, it depends on what you want to know. That's probably the hardest question to answer is, what do you want to know, and how do I find a tool that meets that or that gives me the data that I need? There's also, we have a resources tab here. The Joint Commission has compiled a list of instruments that that could be used. They've been really open about saying not promoting a specific instrument, but they really want you to look at what you're looking for and choose an instrument that's going to get you the data that you need. And so I really like the OQ measures mostly because it's kind of an all-encompassing survey. It has different subscales that it's measuring, and it also gives you kind of a full picture of the client instead of just one facet of the client of what's going on.
Wonderful. Is there a way to see expiring questionnaires? Are there any notifications to follow up clients who aren't the best at taking the questionnaires?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So you can see expired questionnaires. There's actually a whole section on the master dashboard. I don't have a screenshot of it, but on the master dashboard it has expiring questionnaires and completed questionnaires. So you can see all the clients who haven't taken their survey within a time frame. You can see people from the last year who didn't take it, or within the next 7 days, which ones are coming due. And most companies are working off of that list, especially if you're doing a research study or if you're trying to get a specific response rate. I encourage people to have either a research coordinator or somebody who's watching that so that you are getting timely responses and seeing what's going on and who's responding and how often you have expiring questionnaires. So yes, there is a way. There's no specific alerts that alert you and say, hey, this client hasn't taken a survey. But on the client, I'm going to come back here, on their activity log, you'll be able to see the ones that are pending. So if you're meeting with that client right then, you can come to their Outcome Tools tab while you're talking to them and say, hey, you have a survey that's coming due today. Let's go ahead and have you take that while we're meeting.
That's great. What is the cost for Outcome Tools?
So Outcome Tools for most BestNotes customers is already included in the cost of your BestNotes subscription. There are some clients who are on our old pricing structure, and so the cost of Outcome Tools for them is $100 per month, and it's just added onto your BestNotes bill.
One last question here. Wendy asked, isn't swapping out specific reports manipulating the data?
Not sure I understand what you mean about swapping out specific reports. If you're talking about exporting the data and looking at specific questions, that's not manipulating the data. You're just trying to see what's going on with your client. But then when you're talking about manipulating data, what the NatSap Research Project did is they work with an institutional review board out of the University of New Hampshire. And so what they do is all of the organizations gather the data and then they submit it into this pool. And the University of New Hampshire, being an outside source, then they have their graduate students look at the data and can report on it. So really it just depends on how you're doing it and what you need to look at. But obviously, as an organization, you're not going to have your own review board, but maybe you could participate in the NatSap research project or another outcomes research project to be able to get that not sure what word I'm looking for, but so that they can look at the data and it's not tainted, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So.
One last question. Will Outcome Tools be included in the new fresh version of BestNotes?
Oh, Gary, thank you. Thanks for that question. Yes, we really want to include outcomes kind of within the BestNotes Fresh product. We haven't fleshed out exactly how that's going to look, but it's going to be a big focus of being able to quickly see, here are my outcomes. So hopefully what we can include is some dashboard reporting, so you'll see that in real time just right within your BestNotes. So yes, for those of you that are on here, when we talk about fresh BestNotes, we're rebuilding the BestNotes product, and we want to make it a product that's very seamless for you as clinicians, so that the technology you're using isn't getting in the way of your treatment, that you can use it as a tool and not a barrier to your treatment. And so yes, we do want to have outcomes included. We just haven't, I can't tell you exactly how it's going to look, but we are talking about that every day, about how we're going to do that. So. All right, thank you everybody for all your questions and participation. We will be sending these slides out and the recording to anybody who was not able to attend, or those of you that want to revisit the slides. Feel free to email me if you want to get started with Outcome Tools. Go ahead and email me at kristen@outcometools.com, we can, or team@bestnotes.com. That'll create a ticket for me to respond to you and get a time scheduled. And if you have specific questions that weren't addressed that we need to go over for your organization, we'll go through that in our training. And thank you for your time, and we hope you have a great day, and we will hope to talk to all of you soon.